Hi guys, my name's Doug. Welcome to My Messy Garage. Some parts have finally arrived. Let's see if we can get the $100 four-wheeler to fire up and run. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoy this one. Here's the basics of the electrical system, or the electrical ignition system of this four-wheeler. We've got our stator, which creates a charge that runs up to the CDI box. Voltage regulator controls how much power is going to the battery. We have essentially a crank position sensor here that sends timing of the crankshaft to the CDI box, and the CDI box then sends voltage to the coil. I've got everything. It wasn't terribly expensive. I think all of this is right around $100. Not too outrageous for aftermarket parts. And first things we're going to try is the new CDI box and the new coil. I tried just the CDI box and it didn't do the job, so probably our original problem was the coil. Too bad we didn't know that, because the coil's only worth about $11. Anyways, let me start hooking this stuff up on the side of the four-wheeler, and I'll bring you back and we'll see if we got some spark. The CDI box has 3 connectors that go into it. One's a 3-wire connector that has a ground and the pulse signal that goes to the coil. I'll connect that up to the 3-wire. One is our crank position sensor, which is over here on the top of the block. And that comes to this connector. Make sure we get it the right way around. And then our other one is the voltage input. This is the one that brings the voltage out of the stator. Comes up around the back side here and around the top. There we are. We've got our CDI box is temporarily installed. Next item is coil. And the coil sits in the machine up on a little tab here, kind of like this. We've got one side is our positive signal and the other side is the ground. And we need to make sure we get this connected up correctly, because the secondary side of the coil uses the same ground as the primary side. If we have it hooked up the wrong way around, the thing tells me we're not going to get a good signal. So I think we'll grab the spark plug and just stick it in the terminal here and try and turn it over, see if we get spark. We've got a green light telling us that we're in neutral. We've got our spark plug set up here, and let's see if we get any spark out of it. Oh, we got spark. Well, let's see if this thing's going to make some noise. We've got some 2-stroke fuel in a little squirt bottle here. We'll just give that a little shot down the spark plug hole there. We'll put the spark plug back in and hook everything up and see if we can make some noise. I've got the carburetors rebuilt. Check it out in a previous video on this machine. But I haven't got it installed yet. Carburetor spring still needs to go in, and I got to change the rubber boot. But we've got spark plug installed. We've got the coil is hooked up and the CDI box is hooked up. Let's see if it makes some noise. Helps if the wire doesn't fall off. Okay, let's try this again. A little bit more gas. We'll give it a little squirt. Oh, way too much. Oh, we got noise. That's a good sign. Everything actually, I don't hear any knocking or anything like that. It sounded pretty good. Let me readjust everything here so that we can get you guys in where you can see. And I'll try changing out that carburetor boot so we can mount the carburetor. It'd be nice if we get this thing running on the carburetor itself here. What we're aiming for is right down in here. This carburetor socket held on with 2 Allen head screws. Hopefully we can reach in there by hand now. There's one. And there's our other one. And this is the base gasket. And these are the aftermarket pieces that we got. Basically the same sort of thing. We've got our base gasket with an O-ring, looks like a spare O-ring, and 2 new screws. Actually, there isn't a spare O-ring. You see that there's one for this side and one for this side, which not overly obvious because this one is so squashed. Same thing here. And of course, the tricky part is going to be getting everything to line back up again. We may as well use the new screws. They look perfectly fine. So we've got our carburetor socket ready to go on. And we'll lose the screw. It's just sitting on top of the transmission. I'm sure I can find it. The tricky part is going to be getting everything lined up here without losing an O-ring. You know what? I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna have to move the camera out of the way. I can't reach around you. We've got the carburetor boot installed. Both bolts are snugged up good. The O-rings appeared to have stayed in their groove. So now we need to get the carburetor mounted. What we've got here is a rubber boot that goes over the top. I just temporarily have this threaded into place. And the slide goes falling on the floor. Throttle cable is directly attached to the throttle lever up on the handlebar. And first thing we need to do is put a nice shiny new seal in there. Next item on the list is the throttle return spring. This gets a little tricky. We got to squash the throttle return spring all the way up. We have to slide this little crimp on or soldered on cable stop into its notch in the bottom of the throttle slide, and we just carefully let the return spring go back into the barrel of the slide. And now you can see we pull on that and throttle goes up and down. Now we feed this into the carburetor. We've got our idle stop, needs to line up with the idle stop screw, and also there will be a pin down in there that will kind of line everything up. The slide goes down, closes off, and we bring the retainer cap in and thread it on. Now we can move the boot, can get slid back down on the top of the carburetor. And I don't know whether you can see down in the throat of the carburetor, we put the throttle lever up on the handlebar and we have throttle. And we feed this back down through the hole here. Hopefully it will go. And we clip it into the boot, which you guys can't really see. The hose clamp that goes around that boot, it's a nice looking small hose clamp, ideal for this situation, and narrower, but it's a little on the tight side. Let me grab a screwdriver and back that off a touch. Now the tricky part with that, I don't know whether you guys can see this or not, but there's a kind of a rib in the middle of the carb socket that has to lock into a groove on the body of the carburetor. Snug that up. Now we've got our choke that just needs to get fed back down into its appropriate boss. Let me bring you guys around so you can kind of see. I apologize, the lighting is absolutely terrible in here tonight. This is the threaded boss that the choke lever has to go down into. The choke lever is over here beside the start button. Basically, I think we're ready to try and put some fuel into this thing. And what I'm going to try and do is set up just a chunk of fuel line with some of that two-stroke fuel in it, and we'll see how that works. I've got some fuel line attached here. Unfortunately, it's this cheap vinyl stuff. It's all I could get locally. The Tygon tubing, the good stuff that I had, was unfortunately a little on the large side. Wouldn't quite fit on there. This will do for temporary purposes. We'll pour a little bit of two-stroke down the fuel line and see what happens. Well, I don't know if we've got the float bowl full or not, so let's try and fire this thing up. Let's see what it does. Choke on. Oh, that sounds good. Well, we'll try turning the choke down here. I think we're just about out of gas. Well, that is progress. Let me see if I can get a little more fuel in it here, and we'll try that again. This is a different brand, so of course it's a different color, but it is still 92 octane 50-to-1 mix. Pour some more down the carburetor here. Okay, let's give this a try. I did get a few drips out of the drain line on the carburetor, so that suggests to me that maybe the needle and seat's not quite seating properly, or the drain was just not quite sealed all the way. That is promising. Okay, we're in first gear. I don't want to get too carried away because I don't have the brakes working yet, but I think we've got pretty close to a functional machine here. Now we just have some more parts to put back together. Anyways, I think this is where we're going to end it. Definitely it answers the question, will it run? I'll bring you back when I'm ready to start putting some fenders and racks and stuff back on here, and we'll get this machine back so that it looks like a solid running piece of equipment. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll catch you in the next mess.